All right, hello and welcome to today's webinar, Coaching Action Plans. What I like to call this is the art of guiding your clients to complete that which matters and build greater confidence and resilience in them in the process. There's a lot that's near and dear to action plans and how to coach them effectively. So many of the roots of CoachAccountable itself come from my own frustration with being a coach as well as being coached. You have a great session with someone and you're all lit up and inspired and you write down all the things you're going to do to make the coaching make a difference, to actually apply it, and then you promptly forget about it and life comes in the way and inspiration fades and you tell your coach next time, oh, what did I say I was going to do again? And they do a face palm if they're like me, and it's a real missed opportunity if you don't act on coaching. So to really tee up this conversation and kind of get us all on the same page, I'm going to posit something as sort of a foundation perspective that we can adopt when it comes to coaching action plans. And that is that even brilliant coaching is worthless until acted upon. Now that's kind of a harsh and very strong position. You could argue that it's not strictly true. And I say that true or not, it is a powerful place to stand. You might say that, like, the insights and the peace of mind and the comfort are useful, and I agree. But if we take the stance called, like, look, if you don't take action upon this, if you don't make it make a difference in your life, if it just lives in your head as a good idea, feel good or not, I've somehow failed you. And that level of responsibility as a coach is being, making sure that you're doing all that you can to have them get the most out of it. Now, beyond that, I also say that this holds even if you're at the camp, where being is greater than doing. Now, I've been in a lot of coaching programs where, well, let's not just turn everyone into a bunch of accomplished monkeys and out there, chucking stuff off the list. It's the being and how you be with people and how you go through life doing perhaps the very same things. And I agree, being is very important. And I'm not saying that, to be a great coach of action plans, one needs to be obsessed with just going out there and doing and checking things off the list. This really does hold true, though, because again, if being just lives in your head as a good idea and a nice thought, and you don't act upon it by, the interactions you have with others, even if it's not an actual doing something, the coaching has lost something if it's not acted upon in some capacity. And so as a corollary to this idea, we're going to take the stance as a created, declaration that unacted upon coaching is a tragic waste. And having that sort of idea in the back of our heads creates a certain, what I would consider to be a very healthy sting to, if your clients don't act upon your coaching. We want that to be an uncomfortable place because it gives us a sort of impetus, a motivation to make sure that the coaching we're giving isn't just good ideas, that it's actually being acted upon. So now I want to distinguish what I consider to be the stuff of good action plans, which is really, a game worth playing. And any good action plan, kind of holds a few traits more or less in common with any other good action plan, any one of which missing means like, oh, well, maybe we can do something to put them in, and the presence of all which pretty much guarantee you, yes, this is a good action plan. This is a game worth playing. The first one is that completion means genuine progress. Now, we've all, made action plans, and, we've perhaps even coached folks who have big to-do lists of all kinds of stuff that feels productive, and it's, I'm getting these things done, but they don't matter. They're the trivial, superficial things. I mean, I remember, when I was getting my chops as an entrepreneur and really not knowing what the heck I was doing as a programmer for hire, we need business cards. We need social media. We need a website that says all the things about the things. And the better teachers would say, forget all that. What about getting your first 3 paying customers? Oh, it's a real shift to be focused on and clear about what means genuine progress rather than blazing through a to-do list that actually is pretty inconsequential. The second trait, it applies coaching insights. Now, this really means that it's stuff that's not just what your client knows to do and is sort of like, heads down, automaticity and everyone says do X, so I'm going to do X too. But no, coaching action plans that really map back onto whatever got created, whatever insights were unearthed during a coaching session. Make sure that the action plan is a reflection of applying those insights. Because again, applying them means that the coaching didn't go to waste, but also it means that the insights are going to get more into our bones as an idea, not just a good idea, but like, oh wow, that really worked. When I learned that thing and then I did that thing, I could see that wisdom really came to life and created a result that I like. Third trait of a good action plan is something that is genuinely doable. Now, this kind of goes without saying, but I want to make sure that, it'd be very easy to do 1 and 2, but, ride roughshod over number 3, that genuinely doable thing. Don't make plans that are pie in the sky. Make sure that they're well equipped and have the wherewithal, the time, the bandwidth, the skills, the distinction, the expertise to execute on that plan. So not something that's pie in the sky, but genuinely doable. And then fourth, something that's not a foregone conclusion. A good action plan means that you weren't necessarily going to do this, which means that the act of being coached and consciously creating that plan was something that you needed to do in order to have this be the thing that moves you forward. A foregone conclusion was, oh, I was already going to do that anyway, or this is already a guarantee. They were already going to get that. That's not them getting much value out of being coached by you. So make sure it's not a foregone conclusion. That said, I will say that there's sometimes something very nice and it's very appropriate to do what I call aim low and crush it. Give someone if someone's in a really rough place, they feel defeated, COVID-19 is happening, maybe a global pandemic, things are rough. Maybe the best thing that someone needs is just to have a really simple, like, do X, Y, and Z. And we know that X, Y, and Z isn't going to stretch you, but you'll at least have the satisfaction of doing X, Y, and Z, and you can know yourself as someone who can do something. So aim low and crush it can be a nice exception to this every now and then. But generally speaking, your action plans should not be a foregone conclusion. They should be stuff of something that is growing and stretching beyond what was already going to happen. Now, before I continue, I would like to, as part of continuing, I'd like to now talk about something that's a little heady, a little psychological, a little academic. And it's this, even this is sort of an abusive language, but bear with me as I parse it. Follow-through's effect on sense of self. And what I mean by that is the degree by which your coachees follow through, by which they complete, by which they do what they set out to do. That has a major effect on their own sense of self, their sense of confidence and self-esteem and resilience and knowing themselves as people who can achieve versus knowing themselves as people who cannot. This is a really nuanced thing that is very easy to lose sight of, but very powerful if you wield fully. Because making any sort of action plan, at the end of the day, really is a promise to yourself. It's a promise that, I set out to do this sort of thing, and if I do it, if I keep that promise, then that sense of self, that self-trust naturally increases. And that's very powerful for reasons we'll see. And the flip side of that coin is powerful in the negative way, called if you fail or fall short, you can't help but feel like a chump. Now, maybe not at the surface level, maybe not self-acknowledged or even really owned, but at some level, however subtle, there's this sense of like, geez, I said I would do it, but I didn't. That can't help but sort of chip away at a sense of self. And so self-trust that we're talking about here, that gets either built or broken through making or keeping or failing on these promises that are basically an action plan. I will do X by such and such date. Really manifests itself this way as a subtle level of brain patterns. And I won't get too heady or neurological in it, but when presented with the new self, what's the default internal chatter for a person? Is it the stuff of, yeah, I bet I could do that. Okay, that sounds worth doing, and I bet I can do that. Or is it more like, this is another thing that's probably not going to go well? Do people use these exact words in either way? Probably not. But you know for yourself, if you look through, because everyone on this call has been around for a couple of decades, you know for yourself that you can have that sort of visceral reaction to that idea called like, hey, why don't you do X? This is probably going to go well. Or, great, another thing for me to fail at. These are often just beneath conscious awareness, but just as powerful all the same. Again, your clients probably won't say to you when you suggest an action plan or sort of co-create like, hey, this would move you forward. And they might not even have a conscious thought of it, but is that gut feeling of excitement or dread that happens? That's what I'm talking about in terms of the brain patterns at a low level of that self-trust when it comes to making and keeping those promises to yourself. So what we need to realize as coaches who are helping people and coaching them through the process of executing on our coaching, that these patterns are invariably molded through that act of making and executing on action plans, for better or worse. They get stronger as that sense of like, ooh, my sense of self is increased. Yes, I can do that. I did that. I marked it complete. Look at my action plan. It's all green and fabulous. What's next? Or they go to a place of like soggy, I'm really bad at this, or life got in the way and I got some of it done. That's okay, right? no matter which path you take, and anytime you do that cycle of making an action plan and executing out and then taking stock of what got done and what didn't, that is influencing that brain pattern, that sense of self-trust. There's something from the old video. It's been around for 5 years still, and it still holds up pretty darn well on being an awesome coach with coach accountable actions. And in one, I've got a frame where the coach is up on his soapbox and saying something, doing what you say you're going to do by when you said you would do it matters. And that holds up really true. And my recommendation to you guys as you get into this and start to play with your client's own sense of self with regards to, how they execute and how they don't, you can start the conversation with just this sentence. Say it with a little dramatic gravity, it's good. And then really unpack why it matters based on what I just said. That really starts to prime your client's understanding of that it matters when they make plans because it does, for everything I just said. I won't recap it, but this is a nice starting point for that conversation to kind of educate them in the world of how their integrity is on the line every time they make an action plan. So now let's take a look at, how you as a coach who's helping clients to actually coach through their action plans is a substantial value add. Now I'm kind of averse to using the phrase value add. I know it's kind of MB's kind of thing and slightly, but truly the way that you handle your clients and guide them and give them support through doing the things that matter to apply the coaching they get for you truly has an immense component of what it is you're providing for them as a service. And if you can surface this idea of how you do that as a value add, you can again speak more to like, here's what you get with working with me. And there are 3 dimensions to this value add. The first is you're helping your clients to distinguish what there is to do. Because again, blazing through a long to-do list of things that are all low leverage, nice to have, seem important, but actually don't move the needle is a waste of time. And if you can help them from your expertise or from your just being that space for them to sort out for themselves what matters, you're going to help them to do the right things. The second dimension is that you're helping your clients to execute better. Now, again, this can be as simple as, being sort of more of a mentor role where you're giving them a little more expertise and insight on how to do it. And that's the executing better, but even executing at all. We're going to see some structures by which, again, that going back to that earlier anecdote of, the coachee who's like all inspired and makes out an action plan and then promptly forgets it until next session. You can help them to actually do that work by presencing them, having a structure for them to see exactly what there is to do and time their reminders to give them that nice little nudge so they can make space in their already busy lives to do those things which matter. Because again, coaching is often the stuff of stretching beyond what is normal. Again, it's going beyond those foregone conclusions of what will get done. And the third dimension of adding value that you can provide when you're helping people do this is helping them build that sense of self-trust. Because again, the importance of that, what is your automatic reaction to a new challenge, delight or fret, is a huge component of how they're going to be in their life and what they're going to be able to take on and what they're going to be able to complete on. So being aware for yourself that you have the power to help them build that self-trust and make sure that things go in the right direction when they make that cycle of planning and making a promise to themselves and actually doing or not doing it. That's something that you can influence greatly over the series of many session cycles. In short, if you want to, in one-liner, this is, you can kind of give people the promise called be unstoppable as you get more of the right things done. Those 3 things are all encapsulated in that sentence, and those 3 things are all tremendous values that having an actual human being who cares about what you're doing and that your success, they're rooting you on and guiding you and being that support can provide. So now let's talk a little bit about how this maps onto Coach Accountable and what it can do for you to do this better. Again, one of my favorite maxims in all of these talks is I never want a lesson to be just a matter of, hey, here's some ideas, now work harder to make them happen. Just be more awesome as a coach and you'll be more awesome as a coach. It's not really useful. Let's see how we can leverage what Coach Accountable provides to actually help do some of the dirty work of this and some of the grunt work and really make this more powerful. So the phase 1 of managing an action plan when you're doing it with Coach Accountable is the stuff of creation. And again, most of the stuff that gets created will be in the conversation itself. Distinguish, you advise or they kind of create for themselves. You kind of co-create what would move them forward. What's an important thing? That's going to be done in conversation. And then the setup of it is pretty trivial in CoachAccountable. Just, indicate the what and the by when and some reminders. They'll kind of know what this form looks like. And it's pretty simple to just type those things in and set in motion this. Beyond who does it, you might want to let them and make them do it. Because when they do it, when they do the clicks, when they do the typing, when they actually, do the date picker to pick a date, that's they themselves, through the actual kinesthetic of clicking, making that promise to themselves, choosing their fate called, this is what I want to do and by when. And you can also advise them to do, set time their reminders to actually keep them on track so that you can avoid that phenomenon called great ideas. I was so inspired. And after the phone call was over, I promptly forgot about it and got on with my busy life. Nope. This is your opportunity to help them to set those structures in place that are going to help them do the work between now and when you talk to them next. Now I'll talk about phase 1.5 that kind of gets wedged in here, education. This isn't always one of the phases in this, but it bears doing on your part, at least the first time you do this sort of cycle of making an action plan and then going through and then reviewing it. You want to make it clear to your client, give them a little bit of education about how this works and how this structure will support them. The ease and importance of marking things complete. Let them know when the reminder comes, they can just hit reply and reply to the text message or to the email and mark it complete that way. Let them know it's important to mark it complete so that they have a nice record of what's done and what's not, and they can see the scoreboard of what needs to be done and what's still outstanding, but also so you can see it. And can see that, again, that shared repository of what's done and what's not, so that when things fall out, you can be there with awareness to sort of chime in and say, hey, don't forget this. Second is the importance of timelessness and integrity, and it loops back again to that sense of self where you can basically break it down for them. Look, when you say you're going to do something by such and such a time, it really matters that you do. And you can, maybe you take a few minutes on that coaching call to unpack a little bit about, brain patterns and that sense of self. And are you going to be the type of person who, when faced with a new challenge, is like, yeah, I got this? Or, ooh, another opportunity to fail. That doesn't sound terribly fun. That timeliness, integrity, you can impart upon them that importance and give them that sense of this game matters. And then finally, 3, that you'll be watching. A friendly nod back to, again, that sort of shared window, that record of what's done and what's not. You'll be watching, and just having just knowing that another human being is aware of what I've done or what I've not it turns out, really psychologically powerful in terms of a motivator. Even if it's this baseline table stakes called like, I don't want to look like a chump to my coach. Someone knows. It's all too easy to have sort of make a little promise to yourself in silence. And if it slides, it wasn't that important and nobody cares, and it just gets swept under the rug. Still has the same collateral damage on sense of self, but it's easier to do. When they know you'll be watching, it's a lot easier to recognize, okay, this does matter, and let me follow through with integrity. This education phase, like I said, it's just sort of a one that gets slipped in there. It's often a one-time conversation, but occasionally is worth re-upping. And that's the stuff of in your reviews with people, if things are falling out, you can kind of re-present some of these important things. Hey, it's really easy to mark it complete. When you do, you can see what's done. Timeless integrity, and I'm here, I'm rooting for you. I can see when things fall out. Okay. Phase number 2 of this is the execution. Basically, when you hang up the phone and say, all right, you're off to the races, you've got these 5 steps to do and I'll talk to you next week or next month. That's, it's basically the rest is up to them. But it's not necessarily left to chance, and this is important. Now you can check in and keep up through notifications at any time. Again, once you've sort of trained them and sort of clued them into how easy it is to keep up to date with marking things done, you'll know when things have slid. You'll be able to log in and check out their client page and see what's done and what's not midway. This is what I've referred to in a previous webinar as that benevolent stalker time. It's your opportunity to kind of give a little extra love and attention to what people are doing to make sure that they're on track to come in feeling powerful for your next call. Besides logging in, you can also keep up through notifications. Unless you turn them off, the system will let you know when someone has completed an action. They will let you know when someone has canceled an action. That's their way of saying, nope, I'm not going to do this anymore. Sometimes it's appropriate. Other times it's a sign of maybe you need to help and they need a little more support. And it will send you an email when a due date slips. Dear coach, so-and-so's action item is now overdue. And to any one of those notifications, you can simply hit reply in the email and offer a little note of like, hey, great job if they completed, or hey, what happened? Did you need to, don't forget what we talked about, how this is a key thing. Do you need to repromise and maybe make it due for next week? Let me know. Don't let this fall out of existence. Again, a quick little love note delivered via email in response to one of those notifications that gets automatically sent to you. Represences, hey, there's a real human being out there who knows what's going on and actually cares that I fulfill on it. So that takes a lot of the chance off of the table. Those comments of encouragement, again, are something that are yours to put in as you go, either in app or in that notification. Just a quick reminder, again, we make it as easy as possible for you as coach to be that supporting presence without requiring a lot of time for you to babysit the process. Merely just presence the fact that someone else sees and cares. I don't use all caps in my webinars terribly often, but this one I feel inclined to indulge because, again, it's so powerful when you know that when you're the person who's tasked with it and has a game worth playing, if you know that there's someone out there who's rooting for you, knows when things are getting done, knows when things are not getting done, and actually cares, that is psychologically very grounding and orienting to get it done, rather than just letting it slide as good idea but it didn't pan out. So that's execution. There's a lot basically on your side to make sure that it's not up to chance. Number 3, phase 3 is review. Basically when you come back, when you reconvene for your next session, and both parties can clearly see that action plan, what got done, what didn't get done, how timely was it on time, was it usually late, was it just a little bit late? You can see all that, and it's worth presencing in that conversation. What got done and what didn't. Again, that's that rewiring their own understanding of here's how it works when I'm being coached. This person knows and can see. You review the significance of those completed things to being complete. This is sort of in line with celebrate the wins. Hey, you did get 5 out of 7 things done, and these 5 are moving you forward in this particular way. Again, loop back to your original creation of that action plan last session, and presence, like, good job, this matters, this is getting you forward in these ways. Note that partial completion is ordinary, it's predictable, it's okay. Things will fall through the cracks, and you want to presence that is kind of the usual dance. When things are partially complete, let them know that is 2 steps forward and 1 step back, with that cadence of being supported by a coach is very common. It's ordinary, it's predictable. It's not a problem, but you can really re-presence the importance of instead of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward. Wow, you can move a lot faster with that. And again, that sense of self, when you loop back to that psychology of yourself as all that. So you create a game with them for 100% on time every time. And sometimes there'll be good reasons why they couldn't. Sometimes there'll be in retrospect, that plan might have been a little too ambitious, or maybe I just didn't quite have the discipline to make space in my life to do it. And you can say, like, okay, do we need to dial back? Do we need to scale up? That's where you can take a little moment to recognize, well, what should we do for next week? Should we make the plans a little more ambitious? Maybe a little less? Maybe see what needs to be in the place, because again, you're holding as the gold standard that is attainable and should be attained most of the time. 100% on time every time. And speaking of review, when it comes to reviewing, it's interesting to note that your client's actions area can be either a place of joy, where there's a meaningful list of doable items with ample time, the game plan to do, and a nice record of the past completions done timely. Look at all this stuff that I got done. It's a great place to be. I love my action tab. But it can also be a place of despair. You can have a mounting pile of overdue incompletions, a sense of dread that you're never going to get past it, and a sparse record of not a whole lot of things done, and they were either done late or they were canceled and all that. Now, you could take the tack called, CoachAccountable is giving my clients despair. What a terrible application. It's shining a light on where things aren't going well and making my clients feel bad. Fair point. But at the same time, there's something incredibly powerful of recognizing that as a smoke alarm that basically says there is room to change things up in order to make this more powerful and better. Your clients will thank you because if it does become a place of joy, if that transparent record of what kind of action plans are being taken on and what sort of things are being accomplished, then you really do look great. And so the place of despair is not a negative against tracking so much as an opportunity to make things a lot better. Because joyful or despairing or not, or anywhere in between in Coach Accountable, it is going to be a pretty accurate reflection of their own satisfaction of what's happening in their lives, doing the plans that you have helped them to create. There's a fun story. It was a longtime Coach Accountable customer that I had the pleasure of doing coffee with also about 5 years ago. And he told me a story about how one of his clients says to him during one of his calls, like, "Hey, what's up with this Coach Accountable guy? He's always on my case." And my coach, it's just like, yeah, man, Coach Accountable is law. There's nothing you can do. It's just kind of, Coach Accountable is law. If Coach Accountable says that's what you got to do, because that's what you said to Coach Accountable you would do. And I love that, because to me, that is something that everyone on this call can apply. You can let Coach Accountable be the bad guy. No one wants to be the bad guy and bust people for integrity. Coach Accountable has no problem highlighting things in red and sending emails that say, "Hey, this is now late, just saying it's not done." Let Coach Accountable be the bad guy. Have fun with it, personifying it as this total hard ass that is on your client's case. And again, let that be sort of the fire that spurns you into, and looping it back to those original intentions called, well, you did make a plan. Coach Accountable just called you on it. They're not making anything that you didn't already agree to and say was important. Let Coach Accountable be the bad guy, and you will help to have the actions area become a place of joy rather than despair. So let's cap this all up and bring it back to our opening place. Even brilliant coaching is worthless upon acted upon, until acted upon. And I hope I've given you a lot of insight into why that's true and what sort of value you can make for your clients if you take the tack that is true through and through. And to wrap this all up and bring it into clear focus, let's consider an extended visual metaphor that maps out a lot of what I'm talking about and shows off my drawing ability from using my daughter's colored pencils. This is an extended visual metaphor. It's not going to be literally true at all points, but it will give you sort of a nice at-a-glance thing that should bring a lot of these ideas into clear focus as a quick reminder of everything we talked about. So you've got a coaching session, which has a start and an end, and you're coaching a person. Presumably, this person wants to achieve. Now you can have your coaching session that's just sort of meandering along, wherein no plan at all is made. And that will lead you to the place of merely good ideas. Good ideas and nothing more, which can be very pleasant. It can be like a trip to the beach, which is pleasant. It's very relaxing, but not necessarily a lot gets done. So in lieu of that, you can also sort of help them and guide them to do some things. Maybe at some level, it's just the stuff of getting stuff done, where it's not terribly inspired, but at least we're mapping out some actions that are going to be meaningful towards just having the coaching make a difference, not just merely good ideas. But a little bit better than that, what you can do is have, and map out inspired action that actually applies the coaching. Now I've drawn this where you could imagine that little stick figure going up this hill and not too much help. This one's kind of steeper, and it might take the support of a coach to kind of get you up to that higher plateau. But when they do, they're in a place where they can kind of cross over to one of two platforms. Again, very metaphorical. Don't take it strictly literally, but this gives you the idea. The top platform is the stuff of all complete. The middle platform is some complete, some not done. And of course, down on the bottom is buoy, nada. And in this extended visual metaphor, we'll call the hang glider basically a measure of their general wherewithal and preparedness. Just as you wouldn't push someone off a cliff with a defunct hang glider that wasn't actually capable of getting to where it needed to go safely, make sure that whatever action plans that you do create with someone are something that they do have the expertise, wherewithal, time, bandwidth, etc. to do. And then if we're talking about crossing that chasm, it's not just a matter of pushing them off the cliff. Good luck. We'll see you next session. You can give them certain updrafts that will help them to safely cross and get to as high as they can. Things like reminders, and not just little reminders, but just having an actual plan that's clear front and center of like, all right, this is what I said I was going to do, and this is the order of things, and this is by when for each one. The other part is that someone else cares, that psychology, you can play with it. You know, there's a real person out there who's tracking with what you're doing and what you're not, and they do care, and they are rooting for you. And the third one is kind of that chance. Now, it's not chance to them because they're executing or not, but from your vantage point, you know, if you're coaching 10 clients, maybe a couple of them are so great at self-direction, maybe a couple of them are, but some stuff comes up and gets in the way and gets out, you know, makes it so that all the best laid plans end up going in the ocean. All three of those sort of updrafts will basically help to have them get across to wherever they're going to get. And if it goes terrible, you got someone, there's despair, they're just kind of a little upset. A little bit better, you know, that shrug zone, like, I got some of it done. And that's ordinary. That's okay. But at the top tier, there's that sense of like, yes, everything I said I would do, I did. Wow, I could do that again. That sense of self gets built. And up there you have what I call glory. Yay. And there you have it. That's what I consider to be sort of a nice roundabout way of visual metaphoring how to coach clients with action plans. Guide them up the hill of actually taking inspired action that's applying the coaching. Make sure they've got some general wherewithal and preparedness. Give them supporting structures and let them know that it really matters which level they come out at in terms of where they're gonna basically progress on to with the next session. Because at the next session, that basically means they're going from one step higher up and able to, again, keep a sense of momentum, which is very psychologically powerful. That's coaching action plans and projects. There's a lot that you can do, whether you use CoachAccountable or not, to really set your clients up to make the work that they do with you actually count and map onto their lives. And with CoachAccountable, you've got a significant leg up to really give them that support and leave a lot less to chance. Thanks for watching.